How the heck are you, everybody? I am Fastidious. Welcome to my channel. We are talking Doom Tower today and what champions and what champion types you need to start targeting as you progress out of the normal Doom Tower to the true challenge, the hard Doom Tower. So I brought on the Doom Tower expert to end all Doom Tower experts, owner of my favorite Doom Tower content and creator of my favorite Doom Tower content I've ever seen in Raid. That's got to be YST. How you doing, buddy?
How's it going, Fastidious? It's always a pleasure to come and hang out with you and your viewers. And Doom Tower, my favorite topic in the game to speak about. So yeah, excited to dive into this one.
Yeah, let's get into it. Basically, I had the idea for the video. You came to my mind immediately. I told you I had an idea for the collab. I told you the collab, and you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. That's my kind of thing. So shall we?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so just catch people up to speed in 10 seconds. I've got 3 bosses left, 3 days left. I'm going to clear this thing. I've just made it a priority as I saw it was getting close to resetting. And then I realized it's resetting. Normal, you can kind of brute force. I've beat every stage with just like Uugo, Tagoar, Alice, and then bringing some other randomness. Hard, you got to start looking for specific stuff, right? So maybe you could take us through YST, a couple champions that maybe are more accessible or just champion archetypes that people need to start keeping in mind.
Yeah, so the main thing for me anyway, of course, every individual player has different experiences, but for me, I always like to look for the first time you're doing a Doom Tower kind of climb for the hard is ultimate crowd control. So I'm talking about stuns, freeze, true fears. Like these kind of effects are just so powerful for basically controlling the enemies that we're facing, right? And, you know, we've actually got this fusion that's up at the moment that I think is a very good example of a crowd control king, right? Bringing in 2-turn true fears and all of the other stuff he's bringing to the table with, I believe, buff removals in there as well. So, or is it, no, it's the buff decrease, sorry, on that A3.
It just essentially feels like a buff strip because it's by such a significant amount, right? What is it? Three turns on all the buffs. So that's going to feel like a strip for a lot of stuff. And you're right, that does grant an extra turn, which leads into this over here, which kind of effectively goes from a 3-turn to a 2-turn cooldown. I think this is a great shout out. He's going to give you a lot of crowd control, especially since Plarium and the game doesn't penalize you for retrying stuff in the Doom Tower, right? So you can just keep going until you get some good RNG with him and his fears.
Yeah, that's like one of my favorite parts about the Doom Tower is doesn't require energy resource, but gives you some really good rewards along the way. But yeah, I think that's always the foundations for me. Crowd control, of course, getting some damage in there as well, because some of those waves are so damn tanky. And that's one of the biggest discrepancies between, you know, the normal and the hard. Also, you know, just being able to counter the amount of debuffs coming your way with like cleansers and healers and revivers. I feel like these support units are just super valuable. And then, of course, if you've got these top tier champions like Seer, for example, to just blow up the waves, that's going to be a really cool strategy as well.
Yeah, if anyone doesn't know any new players, I was thinking she was a Dark Elf just because she's got that purple going on. But yeah, this is the cheat code for all the waves and all the content in all of Raid Shadow Legends. I think you made a great point about the waves themselves, because so much of Doom Tower as you progress is just get to that next, you know, multiple of 10, which is the boss, blast through the waves, the whole 9 other levels, and then the first 2 waves before the boss, and then you have to maybe use your brain a little as you get higher in normal. But as long as you have some 60s and you know what you're doing, you like I'm doing it right now. You just tear through it, especially if you're patient. But no, with hard, there's specific things you need. You mentioned cleansing and that kind of support. Is there anyone, maybe a couple epics you'd want to shout out that people might already have or could keep an eye out for?
Top of my head, I would say one that everyone can relate to, especially with your code, I believe, is Tagoar. I think he's a very powerful support unit for both the variations, because if you build him in the right way, he's able to, you know, manipulate your speed and healing and the shields if you just use the skill without the revivals, or if you need the revival. These are things that's just, you know, and he's super hard to take down as well with that damage reduction passive for your allies too. I feel like he's a very good example of a strong support epic. But just in general, guys, like, I cannot, like, there's so many people that's come up to me over the years, like, how do I progress in Doom Tower? I think the first time that I ever beat all of the hards, this was before the power creep, before blessings, before relics. It was crowd control. It was like Corrin and Manaya comboing with provokes. And it's once you lock them down and they can't use any of their active effects, it just becomes, it might be a super long run for each of the stages you're doing. If you could just lock them down in all of the many ways you can in Raid, that's something that I always advise to players anyway, trying to push through it.
I think that's a really good piece of wisdom because like people just want to see big numbers and just blast through everything, right? But with this content, it's like single clearance content once a month. There's 12 floors, 2 modes. Normal, you'll like full auto, who cares? So hard's the only one that's going to be kind of painstaking for people. So that's 12 days a month that you just have to hunker down and maybe put a little bit of time into it. So it's like 1/3 of the days, maybe a little bit more than that, 40% or whatever. Just do it. Yeah. That's kind of what you're getting at. Just do it. And like, yeah, like I might have to go in and if I fuse Fabian and I'm going to go like a full supporty build and then I only have a Brimstone Alice and a Tagoar, I work some cleansing in, maybe get a little extra support as well, some other form of shielding. Like that would take a while, but that would clear most of the waves, right? It'd be painstaking, but it would work.
Yeah, it would take. I remember just flashback to like 2-3 years ago of some waves taking 16 to up to like 20 minutes. It was just crazy stuff. But I think like obviously once all of the blessings and stuff's in the game, you can manipulate their defense now, and maybe you've got some Nature's Wrath with your damage dealers such as Thor, to enhance his damage. There is many ways. Like Thor's actually a really good example of a fusion that players had that can just tear through waves like no man's business. It's crazy because he's bringing crowd control, speed manipulation, and just raw damage up there next to Armand's. Yeah, he's one of those kind of pinnacle champions for me that I feel like is just ideal for Doom Tower because he's just bringing in so much stuff that you need. And the passive just constantly proccing for extra stuns. So he's a great one.
Yeah, he's got the best of a few different worlds, so that's pretty cool. I gotta give players just a very quick aside, not because I'm sponsored, not to shill, but just I have to give him a shout out. The fusions are another level than when I left. Like we had a couple great fusions, but like some of these champions are wild. I think a great way to transition to like the second half of this video, I think you touched on a lot of the fundamentals. I really like the grind it out, just take your time. I think that lends itself very well to how we like to play. Not everyone likes to play that way. When you do hard, it's going to be moments where you just need to have the right type of champion or the right type of strategy. And you're not going to know that until you really understand all the bosses. I think people might not know this if they're new to the game. The bosses do rotate, right? They're not. It's not a permanent. Just this group of 4. So maybe we could speak to very quickly, But what else is to come? What else people can expect?
Yes. So I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the next rotation. Well, there's 3 rotations. So you've got like the Frost Spider, you've got the Eternal Dragon, and then you've got the Dark Fae being like the final bosses that you're going to encounter. But I believe we're going to be rotating round to number 1 is going to be the one you're going to be doing your hard push on. And that consists of, I believe, Kuldath the Magma Dragon. There's the Nether Spider. There's Borgoth the Scarab King. And also the Frost Spider being the ultimate boss.
All right. So I realize if we want to show off all these different bosses, especially that aren't live right now, what better place to do that than a website that you work for every day, hellhades.com. You write a ton of articles, a ton of write-ups and ratings for every champion in the game, which you're doing right now, right? You're going back through all of them?
Yeah, it's a crazy grind, especially as the game develops, but keeps me on my toes, I guess. Yeah.
I'm not just plugging for you, though. It is a good resource. So, guys, go to Hell Hades. You go here. You go to Tools. You can do the stages. And now we can actually choose what rotation we want to discuss. And we can actually pull up that information. So, you said rotation 1 is coming off?
Yeah. So, that'll be the one after the one we're on right now.
Okay,
and then
cool.
You can go to Hearts and select your stage. So, for basically the first boss, we could just do stage 10, right? That'll be the first one we're facing. So, obviously, this is going to be in increments of the stages. You'll face him again at a higher version. But the foundations of the Magma Dragon is basically provoke him, lock him out of his active skills so he's always just using his default attack. And the fight becomes very easy following from that. But then also, as you're, of course, facing hard, he's going to be hitting like an absolute truck. So decreased attack is definitely something you want to consider. But then also the boss, if you allow him to take a turn, can place an hex, and then he starts ignoring protection effects as well on the ally that receives it. So you kind of want to avoid cleanser champions so the hex isn't moving around and your most dominant champions are getting wiped, right? That's pretty much it. Damage, avoiding HP burns as well, because he converts them into continuous heals for himself, and you don't want that to happen. And then also Brimstone will be your best friend for this. If you can proc that as many times as you can, I'm sure you're aware. Makes any boss that uses their active effects easier.
Yeah, A5 Alice is just a cheat code that they just gave that to us, I gotta say. But yeah, so to recap, maybe we'll do a little recap and we'll put it on the screen at the end of every one of these. We're talking provoke, we're talking decrease attack, block debuffs. Anything else I'm missing we're looking for here?
Enemy max HP is very, very strong
Cool.
for this, just to take down the boss. And then also speed manipulation if you don't have that. So you could just cycle your turns faster and take out the boss with your
Yeah.
raw damage.
Is he susceptible to like decrease speed and turn meter drop as well, or?
No, I
No.
believe he's immune to those two effects, yeah.
Got
if I'm
it.
not mistaken.
Okay, so speed on your end, speed boosting on your end, nice enemy HP, nice enemy max HP damage like a cold heart or a newt, whatever people are cooking with, and then certainly it provokes the decrease attack, general support, and maybe some block debuffs. So I can just go to 20 now, and we're gonna see what's coming next, right?
Yep.
Sweet. So up next, I remember the Nether Spider. Tell us about the Nether Spider.
I think everybody that's faced the Nether Spider is just like, oh no, we don't want to be facing this again. Well, basically, once you come up against the boss itself, kind of ignoring the waves, he's going to spawn down his spiderlings and then just spurt out poisons from left, right, and center. You're like, damn, these are unblockable, unresistible. What on earth is going on? Well, of course, the best way to counter this is going to be a cleanser champion, right? So if you could bring in someone like I guess a budget variation would be Reliquary Tender. That's a very good rare, but then also Mithrala Lifebane.
Yeah, so quickly, we got our little free-to-play option. So you got to get her from a void, but she's just a rare. Everyone will get her eventually, and she's phenomenal. Reliquary Tender, you give it a shout-out to. Keep an eye out for her, guys. And then certainly, it's further down the line, but Mithrala is just amazing. Make sure once you're able to do even the minimum on Hydra, you hit it every week to start getting those fragments, because she's wacky. What else we're thinking?
Yes, so I guess one of my favorite strategies for this boss is one where you actually want the spiderlings to hit you. And I know it sounds crazy, but it's basically the combination of Geomancer's Burn aside a heal reduction champion, because it's actually one of the bosses that allows you to place that on them so they can't heal. And of course, once you trigger the counterattacks from the boss, you're therefore doing more procs of Geomancer's Burn. And literally, you can kill the boss in like 30 seconds to 1 minute on the hardest stage possible with that duo strategy, and of course some supports to keep them alive. Yeah, that's probably the best combo in the game for it.
Because when the boss is attacking you, it's healing back up, so that would neutralize the crazy damage the burn combination with Geomancer's passive will do. But if you can get a heal reduction on, and there's a lot of heal reduction options, so you'll find them. Otherwise, you can just search here or search on Hellhady's website with what YST has done. But yeah, you're to the no more neutralization. There's no healing back. They're taking all the geo damage and they're not healing.
Yeah, I guess the only kind of issue with the strategy is make sure you've got enough support to keep them alive, because once geo's down, the burn reflections stop, and the run can pretty much be GG's. But I guess if you don't have those kind of strategies and you're like, is there any other way? Of course, some kind of single target burn, so you're not triggering the spiderlings, is a good one. Like a Drexar Blood Twin, for example. And then also you can do like a debuff spread effect and potentially place that on all the spiderlings without actually hitting them.
Wait, really quickly, what about like a Mordecai that does a place, not a hit? Does that work well as well?
Yeah, placement's very, very good as well. And if you don't want to trigger the actual spiderlings as well, it's just crowd control them, right? Stuns, freeze, and then they can't really do anything.
So yeah, to recap there, some little Geomancer cheese, get a little crowd control on the spiderlings if you need, do a place but not an attack HP burn, or do an HP burn with a debuff spread from the Queen Spider to everything else. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do there, and then it's just gonna be a theme with all this stuff. Bring a lot of support. For this one, if you don't go for that kind of HP burn thing, definitely bring a lot of cleansing. I like this. This was a real nightmare back in my day. I remember this.
Oh, it was horrid, but yeah, I guess if once you kind of lock down the foundations, it's a pretty straightforward one, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing. These might feel abstract at the beginning, but just try. I actually think this is a good moment. You can see we're starting. It obviously goes 10, 20, 30, 40. Repeat the cycle. Don't lose your mind, if you can't clear 12 stages the first try on hard when you finally get there. Even picking up 4 more stages and still clearing normal, that's plenty. That's a lot of extra resources.
Yep, and just one last thing on that Nether Spider, actually, which I think is important. Basically, if you don't bring in a cleanser champion, you don't have these cheesy strategies, the reason why you're getting wiped out so badly is the boss is actually detonating the poisons that you're stacking. And then the more times that you hit him, you're actually increasing the duration of those poisons for him to detonate. And that's why you want to just remove those, right? You're not going to survive otherwise.
Yeah, so for anyone who doesn't know how the poison detonation works, it might look like you only have 2 or 3 poisons on you, but if they're all 5 turns long, that you're getting all 5 turns at once for each stack of poisons upon you. So that's kind of nuts. Here's a familiar face. We've got the Scarab King. Is this an affinity switch? Is that what changes here?
Yeah, so there's a spirit one and a force one.
So it looks like we got the force one coming up. So this was going to be the same kind of story as normal, right?
Yeah, pretty much. It's just obviously the higher thresholds. If you're relying on a resist strategy, it's probably not you're gonna need a lot more stats, as you can see. The kind of accuracy goes crazy. But I guess the foundations is, well, I guess the most basic strategy that the game wants you to do is place a shield so he doesn't retaliate. Also destroying the HP shield. Is also very viable with like destroy sets or champions that can do it, such as Rotos. And then just manipulating the turn meter, someone like in a lore, so the boss never takes a turn. And once you've got like full shield coverage, I think a very good example is Metal Shaper from the Lizardman. He actually brings this on a 2-turn cooldown, and he's a rare. So a very good option that you can combine. Yeah.
I've told people a few times on stream to save a copy. I've got my copy ready for when I have to come and need him. But there you go, guys. Yeah. Also, I think this is a great one to get decreased attack on if you can. And then a nice little cheesy thing you can do is if you've picked up from clan versus clan any of those blood shield accessories, that's a nice way to always make it so you've got yourself a shield. Trying to see who I think I've got. Wukong has one, so that's something people can keep an eye out for.
Blood shield is massive if you've got the luxury of it. I guess if you are in the situation, because it is a massive jump from normal to hard, you'll be like, oh my gosh, this is absolutely disgusting. I guess some call outs for some solo champions. I listed a few for you. So there is Uros, who you get a bit later on from the hard Doom Tower. Mifrala can actually solo as well, so for anyone that's got it, she can do it. There's Tomb Lords. Tarogi the Frog is an epic. Skull Lord Vargal and also Vergis and also Cornelia can do it as well in a toxic set. So these are just a few highlights that can. And the reason why they can is right affinity. So you kind of choose the champions depending on the one you're facing. So you get some weak hits. But then also you want to place poisons because that's one of the quickest ways to beat the boss. And that's why Tarogi is so effective, because the more times that you're hit, the more poisons he's placing. And he's also self-healing at the same time. So in a high resistance build and some immortal or something, he can actually carry very well.
Really cool. I like that shout a lot. It makes perfect sense why he can solo. I never thought about Taragi soloing that. Love that suggestion. All right, we got one more, and I think that's probably good enough to end there. You know, if people love this video, let us know. Maybe we run it back for rotation 2, because that will be the only one we have missed. But I think we're getting a good taste of the fundamentals. Now we've got the Frost Spider Sorath.
This is one that, do you know what? It's such a straightforward boss, but at the same time, it's a boss that can gatekeep kind of players if they don't have the effects, because the only way that you can actually defeat him is with having HP burn in the team, and then also block revive if you don't have that, because you could just stop it at the final hit with someone like an Armiger who's an uncommon. Well, I guess like for me on my free-to-play, I actually don't have a single burner, and I'm like, damn, what am I going to do? And I'm looking towards these block revive champions. That's it pretty much. You just want to burn him before he dies or block revive. And then also controlling the minions. With like a leech debuff, I think, stops the transfer from the minions to the boss if they're active, which is very important as well.
Yeah, so this one, you're really looking for that HP burn. That's going to be a great way to tick away. And if I'm not mistaken, she won't die unless she dies while an HP burn is placed upon her, right?
Yeah, unless it's block revive with someone like Lydia.
Yeah, exactly. So if you got your Fenax or your Armiger, as we discussed. So those are the two things to look for: block revive skills and HP burn. And otherwise,
cleansers.
Cleansers are helping in a big way.
Cleansers I think the highest stage you're going to find is like, oh my gosh, this is absolutely disgusting. You're frozen half the time. It's nasty. So some kind of high resistance, tanky reviver / cleanser, I definitely highly recommend. But it's not to say that you can't get through it without it. It will just take a bit longer. But, you know, bringing in these activators like an Artak or Stop the Broken to combusties, and then also enemy max HP champions, the boss really does have a crazy amount of health, and you could be there for hours otherwise. So definitely bring those in, guys.
Yeah, so there's some good shots. Actually, I mean, to new players like me, not free to play, but they were free to play, right? This was like an anniversary event login, really, really strong. And then Stock, remind me Stock's affinity. So I have.
He's an Ogrin tribe, legendary.
He's Ogrin. I thought it was, the Ogrins and the Orcs are one in my mind.
I don't blame you.
Where's this guy hiding out? there he is. Yeah, so he was a great fusion that came. So stuff to look forward to. Probably there'll be more fusions in all of our futures that will be solutions to some of this stuff. You can see right now, Fabian is going to be a great solution, at least to the waves, for a lot of things. I think a final place to end this, and then I'll let you go, and I'll give you a big thank you for your time, is I know I said it briefly, but do not lose your mind if you can't just like in month 2 or 3 or 4 or 8 be beating hard Doom Tower. It is hard for a reason. I mean, you talked about you could bring a big resistor and cleanser. The guy, look at this. He's got 300 accuracy. So like to have all the other stats you need to not die in the fight and then also be building 400 resist or whatever is going to be needed, as you can see here, that's a tall order. So don't be discouraged. You know, I'll tell you right now, YST, my goal for month 2, you know, rotation 2 for me, I'm going to beat this rotation now. I got 3 days. I got 3 bosses. I think I'm good to go. And then if I can just beat the first grouping, right? If I can just get through 40, you know, I think that'd be cool. But I'm still, you know, who knows? You can always get hung up because you're missing that one piece. You know, don't have that one skill. So just don't be discouraged and definitely do as much as you can because the rewards, it's hard to get that many freebies in raid, and this is a reliable way to get some good ones, right?
Yeah, what I always advise players that's like kind of taking it on for the first time is just push up hard as much as you can. When you get stuck, go back to normal, finish it off, you know, and once you finish the final boss in normal, then go back to hard for the rest of the time. But always try your best to push as high as possible because the rewards are night and day between the 2 difficulties, and you don't want to be missing out on that stuff, right?
I think that perfect note to end on. Just do your best, try. Don't let it be the end of the month and you realize you didn't use any of your keys, and have some fun. Thank you, YST. I appreciate the time so much. I'm sure whether in a video or not, I'll be picking your head about this stuff more in the future. So I appreciate it. Definitely go check out all of YST's content. That stuff is evergreen. So many solutions to so many of these bosses and some of the most creative stuff I've ever seen in this game. So thank you, sir. Any final words?
No, just appreciate you having me on. Always a blast to hang out with you and your viewers, and especially talking about Doom Tower. Anytime, you know, if you want to speak some more strategies in depth, it'll be really cool to come back and speak about it.
I love it. Thank you, sir. Thank you guys for watching. Share it with your mother, and we'll see you real soon. Bye.
Fastidious.